Family estrangement stories, real Reddit experiences. Religious disownment. My parents have cut off contact with my siblings and me multiple times since I was in my late teens. One of the religious rules in their faith is that you don't associate with others who know their teachings but refuse to follow them, including family members. Parents are encouraged to disown any children who have left the faith. The first time was when I was 19. It devastated me. I was heartbroken, and eventually they reconsidered, only to repeat the cycle a couple years later. This pattern continued until I stopped caring and no longer attempt to maintain a relationship with them at all. I was dating a girl in high school whose family followed the same religion, but she wasn't particularly devoted. I really liked her, and we had fun together. Then she vanished. Her father discovered our relationship, and she was sent to live with her grandmother. Never saw her again. Her sister managed to let me know what happened, and that the girl was sorry. It really affected me for a couple years. Custody and parental rights. I signed away my parental rights to my daughter. It sounds terrible, but here's the backstory. My ex-wife and I separated for a while, then briefly reconciled. We had been intimate exactly once while working things out, and then she tells me there's been another man involved and the child isn't mine. She wanted a quick, clean divorce. I refused to proceed with the divorce until paternity was determined. DNA test was finally done, and guess what? The child was mine. I deployed to Afghanistan. When I returned, it took a judge's order to finally allow me to see my daughter. She was already walking when I saw her for the first time. Fast forward 1.5 years, and I was financially struggling, traveling 600 miles on weekends to see my daughter for just a few hours, if at all. My ex was pulling no-shows and arriving late for my scheduled visits. When my daughter called me "other daddy," I knew I didn't stand a chance. I knew my ex would speak negatively about me and undermine me every opportunity she got. I signed away my rights shortly thereafter. She's 16 years old now. Once she turns 18, I'll be able to contact her directly. Autism and behavioral challenges. I wouldn't say I've disowned or stopped loving my son, but it's extremely difficult to find love for him. He's almost 14 next month and is currently out of our home at a treatment facility. He's averaged 2 arrests per year for the last 2 years and has attacked my wife several times, our daughters several times, and neighborhood kids several times. He's run away from school, run away from home, and tried to push me off the roof of our house after threatening to jump and harm himself. We've become the family in our town where the police are called to our home on a semi-regular basis. He's been getting more violent as he gets older, not to mention bigger and stronger, and I honestly don't see an end in sight. The key fact I'm leaving out is that he's been diagnosed as high-functioning autistic and is also bipolar. That's like putting walls around a tornado and expecting it to stay contained. Much of what has occurred, he had little control over because of how his mind works. He's constantly at war with himself, structure versus chaos. My wife and I have tried desperately to give him the best life we can while keeping ourselves and our daughters safe. But I'm exhausted. It's been 8.5 years of this, and I've been ready to give up on him for a while, but my wife refuses to let him go. Response from another user. My brother has the same combination and was in a similar situation at that age. He's 10 years older now and studying for a PhD, engaged to a wonderful woman. I'm not promising it will get better, but it can happen. I've seen it. Interracial relationship rejection. My mother was disowned by her parents for her interracial relationship. There's been some discussion below, so I'll add more detail here. Yes, we're from the South, Arkansas. There are parts of this that are bizarre too. My mother initially lied to her parents and said she was dating an Arab man. This was acceptable, but they discovered she was lying, leading to her being disowned. I guess in the early 70s, Arabs were okay, but black people were not. They disowned my mom, but it was fine if we grandchildren came over. My older sister was close with them, but me and my younger sister always felt uncomfortable going over there. They adored my older sister, though, and she stayed over and went on vacation with them. I remember asking my grandfather why he didn't like my mother when I was about 8 or 9 years old at a cousin's birthday party. He just walked away. These same people who essentially pushed her out of their lives were the ones she took care of and comforted in their darkest times. She sort of went back to them, and they didn't push her away. I'm assuming because they knew the end was near and were trying to right their wrongs. She was there with them until their final days. My mom might not be perfect, but that made me look at her in a completely different light. Mother's blame and resentment. I can answer for my mother. I cut contact from her, but from what I hear nowadays, she resents me for ruining her life. First terrible thing I did. My mother purchased her first home when I was 12. She had always had this vision of me having a house and playing in the backyard as a child, and she felt like I was missing out by living in apartments all my life. Thing was, I had no desire to move out of where we were, and more importantly, she couldn't really afford a house. Plus, this was during the housing crisis, so the price was highly inflated and dropped significantly a year later. We only lived there a year before moving in with her boyfriend at the time and renting it out. I apparently was the sole reason she purchased that house. She did that for me, so it was my fault she bought a house she couldn't afford. Second terrible thing I did. She got pulled over while driving to a nearby city because she was swerving on the freeway. I was 13 at the time and had fallen asleep, but got woken up by the car shaking back and forth and almost hitting a semi while she was asleep at the wheel. I woke her up and she insisted on continuing rather than stopping. Not long after, she was pulled over by an undercover officer. I watched as she failed the sobriety test badly. She fell several times trying to walk in a straight line. I cooperated with police and handed over the prescriptions she had in the car. So basically, that was an act of betrayal. She was in the medical field and was struggling to find/keep a job that would hire her with a record. She was charged with child endangerment. She was driving while heavily medicated, but I took most of the blame because I wasn't loyal to her and sold her out to the police. So now her finances are in shambles and she can't keep a job in her field because of the terrible things I did as a teenager. Her career is ruined because of me. Elder abuse and family rifts. A family torn apart based on an aunt and her niece. Aunt starts showing signs of dementia at a relatively young age, is moved into an assisted living home. Niece, who bounces around jobs, gets hired to visit her about once a week, take her out to the mall or for a walk in the park. Paid handsomely. We get an alert that aunt has a check bounce from her account that should have $5,000 in it. Niece has drained the account, proven beyond doubt with receipts. Niece would take aunt to the bank machine every Friday and withdraw $200, then fill her car with gas. Aunt can't drive, and niece charged us for hours when she clearly didn't spend hours with her. Niece charged us claiming she took aunt to appointments. There was no appointment. We can actually call the doctor for confirmation. The family rift. For some bizarre reason, niece's family took her side. Of course they took her side. I'll bet in their minds, the niece earned it. Niece was doing the unpleasant and sometimes emotionally draining work of visiting and entertaining a family member suffering from dementia. It saved them from having to set aside time to do it themselves. Everybody wins, right?
Wrong.
Financial betrayal. My parents disowned my oldest sister. She always struggled more than us growing up. She became a teen mom with a problematic older guy, partied a lot, etc., but my parents helped her significantly. They do okay for themselves, but had a no co-signing rule for all 6 of my siblings and me. Still, they co-signed for her house, so she could get a head start. She didn't pay the mortgage for almost 3 years before my mom got served papers in front of all the other nurses at her workplace. My parents worked tirelessly to try to work out deals where my sister and her family kept the house and got some leniency, but to no avail because my sister never showed up for court dates. During this time, she paid $112,000 for IVF and got pregnant with her 5th kid. When my mom demanded some of the money back, she accused my dad and my brother of beating her sons. When my parents took the grandchildren to Disney World, she said she'd file a police report if he asked for money again. They kept asking because it wasn't true. She awkwardly joined us for Christmas and punched my brother in the face during the meal for humiliating her oldest son by asking if he wanted to work at my brother's company for good pay. Her oldest son is in and out of jail, and my brother was trying to help him after his release. But her son said he didn't want a job and got angry. She then called the police and told them the same brother had illegal weapons in his truck, and they came on Christmas night and searched his truck. No weapons found. Needless to say, she is not welcome anywhere near any of us, and my mom still cries about it but refuses to talk to her again. Parental mental illness. My father said my mother's issue was she had too many children, and it gave her some kind of brain fever, much like a dog that loses its mind after having too many puppies. My mother said my father felt trapped by me. He was planning to leave when it was just my two older brothers. Then my mother got pregnant with me, and he felt obligated to stay. Now that I'm an adult with two kids myself, I think I realize that both of my parents are just extremely mentally ill and incapable of loving anyone, including themselves. Sudden behavioral changes. My sister was disavowed. She was a perfectly normal and happy person until she turned 16, and then out of nowhere, she joined a gang of drug users and started breaking into houses and all kinds of crazy behavior. She stole all of our stuff on multiple occasions, punched grandma in the head over $10, etc. The police had her tested for substances a dozen times, and she was always clean. Parents spent $10,000 on a stay in a psychiatric facility to try and find out if she had a mental disorder or had been harmed somehow, and there was no indication of any underlying issues. One day, she came home and said she needed money for another abortion, and my parents lost it. No one had known she was ever pregnant, let alone multiple times. They said they would take the baby, but she refused to go through with the pregnancy, so they cut her off then and there, and it was like she literally never existed. I asked her why she was living her life this way the last time I saw her, and all she could say was, because it isn't boring. Success story. Addiction recovery. A little different. I was disowned, but I deserved it. I was an addict and a mess for a long time. My mom couldn't keep bailing me out of trouble and watch me self-destruct anymore. I wasn't living at home. She came to see me one last time to tell me she was done, not to contact her. She would no longer have anything to do with me. She was in pieces. I can't imagine how hard it must have been for her, but it was the best thing she ever did for me. Once she cut me off, my rock bottom came hard and fast. After a little while of living on the streets and my addiction consuming me, I made my way to a detox center, got a few days clean under my belt, and never looked back. That was almost 15 years ago. After I was clean for a while, I contacted my mom, and little by little, we built a relationship again. Now we're really close. I am forever grateful to my mom for letting me fall and for letting me back into her life. These are real experiences shared by Reddit users about family estrangement and disownment. Names and some identifying details have been changed for privacy.